You know, Ricky Gervais has been one of my favorite people for as long as I've known who he is, going back to the original version of The Office, which is easily in my top three favorite TV shows ever. And he even retweeted one of my videos a couple years ago. He tweeted my video from my old series, Creationist Arguments I'm Tired of Hearing, called Why Are There Still Apes?, which was just a huge thrill for me. And he's gotten some attention lately for coming out very strongly against trophy hunting. He posted images of a woman who is a trophy hunter and takes pictures of herself smiling next to the carcasses of the animals that she has killed. Ricky Gervais is just utterly appalled and disgusted by this, and he has been taking to the internet, particularly Twitter, and just sort of sharing his revulsion at this practice. And I share that revulsion. I am on the Ricky Gervais side of this argument. There are lots of reasons, I think, to be against hunting, to not be okay with it. You can look at it from the animal rights side of the issue and say, why should it be okay to arbitrarily shoot animals, even if you do eat the meat? And most people who hunt in this area where I live do eat the meat. They don't just hunt purely for trophies. They hunt for meat as well. But it's not. It's very rarely done by people who need to hunt in order to survive. Yeah, they'll take the meat. They'll eat the meat, but they don't need it in order to survive. If they were in that situation where they were hunting in order where their game meat was their primary source of sustenance, that's a little bit of a different situation. But that is not the case for most people who hunt in this area, and I would dare say for most people who hunt in the United States, if not the world. You're not doing it because you have to. You're doing it because you want to. And it's that part of it that I really want to talk about for the most part, because that's the main reason, even with all the animal rights issues and all of the sort of ethical issues that come up about hunting that I see and I think are really good reasons for not doing it. To me, the main reason why I don't do it anymore, and I don't want to do it, and I really would prefer if other people didn't do it, or I'm just not comfortable with it, is because I just think it is very unbecoming to us. It just doesn't say anything very nice about ourselves as people if one of the things we enjoy to do is killing other things. If we kill other things for pleasure, not out of necessity, but because we like it, because we enjoy it, because it's a sport to us, that's really, really, really unbecoming. About 10 years ago, I went on a trip with my dad and my brother and my best friend at the time. We went down to Tennessee to a hunting preserve, to basically a game farm, to hunt. And I didn't hunt. I didn't even bring a gun. I don't think I ever even held a gun the whole time I was there. I brought my camera and made it clear to my dad and my brother and my friend from the very beginning that I was going to take pictures and to just sort of hang out with my friend and my family and to just have a good time. And I was not going to hunt anything. I was not going to shoot anything. And that's what I did. And even though I look back on it as a mostly positive experience, because I did get to spend a lot of time sort of away from everything with my best friend and with my brother and my dad, who I don't spend a whole lot of time with, even though they live right around here. There are parts of that experience that still trouble me, that still just make me shake my head, and I was reminded of that time very, very strongly when I was looking at the pictures that Ricky Gervais posted or reading about his conflict with these trophy hunters. Because that's the sort of place that this game farm was. I mean, there weren't giraffes there. There weren't what we would call in the United States exotic animals, like big cats or things like that. But there were animals that you don't usually see just out in the wild in that part of the United States. I mean, yes, there were deer that are very common. There are deer that live around here, white-tailed deer, that you can see all the time, and that are the primary things that people around here hunt. But this game preserve also had mule deer and elk and buffalo. There was a and there was a big Texas Longhorn bull that was just humongous, one of the largest animals I've ever seen outside of a zoo. And they were all on this big sprawling game preserve, just I don't know how many acres. And they were free to wander the grounds as they saw fit. There were open fields and pastures, and there were very, sort of densely grown woods or different landscapes for them to occupy. And they were free to sort of move around as they pleased. And the deal was you paid a certain amount of money to come to stay for however long, and you got a room and a bed and sort of the run of the place. And you also paid a certain amount on top of that depending on what you shot. So if you killed an elk, you would pay this much, and if you killed a deer, you would pay this much, and whatever, and you got to take home the meat and whatever you wanted. And there was a morning when Jimmy and I, my friend, were walking around the farm, around the preserve, and while we were walking back to the living quarters after having been out in the woods for the morning, we passed a pen of rams. Among the animals that were at this game preserve were also rams. They had rams and they had wild boar. And one of our fellow travelers at this game preserve had brought his young son along. His son was maybe 9 or 10, maybe even a little younger. And this guy and his son and one of the employees at the hunting preserve were in a fenced-in pen that had a little group of rams in it. And one of the rams had been separated from the rest of the pack. So sort of most of the herd were kind of gathered off to one corner of the pen. And then in another corner of the pen, there was this single ram all by itself. And it was being faced by these three people, by the guy and his son and the hunting preserve employee. And the kid, the 9 or 10-year-old boy, had a gun, had a rifle, and his dad was coaxing him to shoot this ram. And that bothered me from the moment that I saw it. I'm pretty sure Jimmy and I talked about it like as soon as I saw it. We were still on our way back to the lodge, and I said, "That's just fucked up. That's not cool." Like, I was really disturbed by it. And Jimmy kind of agreed with me, but at the same time wasn't nearly as a hunter himself, he wasn't nearly as sort of outraged by it as I was. But he saw my point, that if you're going to defend hunting as a sport, and that's another thing that Ricky Gervais has said, it's not a sport. If it was a sport, then the animal would have an equal chance. But you have a rifle and a rational mind, and the deer or whatever you're hunting is a wild animal. It is at a tremendous disadvantage when faced with you. And often you're using deception. You're making sure that the animal doesn't even know you're there. So it's not a sport. Let's not say it's a sport. But even if you accept that hunting is a sport, even if you sort of include hunting in your definition of sports, in what way is it sporting to shoot an animal in a pen that is surrounded by people, that has nowhere to go, that is cornered? And what does it say about a father that would want his son to do something like that? I've been haunted by that ever since I saw it. And looking back at my own childhood, I'm grateful that my father never put me in that situation. And I don't think would have, even though my father was a hunter. My father, I don't think, would ever have wanted to put me in a situation where I was basically executing an animal that had been cornered for the express purpose of allowing me to kill it. I just don't think he would have considered that an ethical form of hunting. And the fact that that is considered okay by so many people, that it's not you don't even have the pretense of it being sport. It's not a sport. It's just an act of killing. It's taking pleasure in the killing of another thing. And it reminded me, I thought of that. Remember back during the George W. Bush administration when Vice President Cheney got shot in the face by one of his own friends when they were on a hunting trip, and they were on a hunting trip that was very similar, where they were basically pretending to go grouse hunting. I think it was grouse they were hunting, but instead of going out somewhere where they could find wild grouse that they would actually have to exercise some level of skill and expertise to find and to shoot, they were out someplace where the grouse had been sort of provided for them, and it was just a much easier. It was a hunting like simulation. And it just doesn't speak very well to our character that we do these sorts of things, does it? It just doesn't seem right to me. Even those of you who are watching this who maybe are okay with hunting, who feel like hunting is something that should be permissible or that is justifiable, that don't share my queasiness about it. Surely there is no excuse for having a place where a 9-year-old child and his father can go and just murder an animal for no reason other than the sheer pleasure of killing it. Where you can teach a young child the value of killing another living thing for no other reason than just to do it. Because you can. Because it's sport. Except it's not sport, it's just killing. So killing in and of itself. With no structure, with no rules, with no real skill involved, because it's not like the kid even had to be that good of a shot, because he was literally 5 feet away from the animal he was going to shoot with a rifle. That can't be okay. That can't be okay. And when you take that same practice and you transfer it not from animals that have been raised for this purpose onto endangered species that are endangered in large part because they have been hunted to the brink of extinction. Like this just can't be okay. There is no possible justification for this. There is no excuse for this. Is there? I mean, if there is an excuse, I would love to hear it, because I've heard the excuses made by trophy hunters in response to Ricky Gervais jumping on their shit over this, and none of them hold any water to me at all. There's just no excuse. And there's something very, very, very unseemly about not only shooting an animal just for the sheer pleasure of being able to say you shot it, but then taking a picture of yourself holding its carcass or lying down next to it and smiling a big pretty smile. Look at what I killed. Something very ugly about that. Very, very ugly about that. We folks here in the United States sometimes forget, often, I shouldn't say sometimes, we often forget how good we have it, how privileged we are. We are the most privileged blind people in the world, especially white folks, and especially white folks that have some money, who can afford to go to other people's countries and give them money and kill their animals. But there's something, it's one of the ugliest things that we do. I mean, it's one of those things that if aliens came to visit our planet, that would be one of the things I would want to hide from the aliens, so they don't get the worst possible impression of us. Oh, the aliens are coming. Nobody tell them about trophy hunting. Nobody tell them about big game hunting. Because I just don't see how there's any excuse for it.